Thank you, Chairman Takano, and I wanted to also echo my colleagues and start out by thanking Mr. Rowe for his many years of service to our country, both in uniform and in Congress. It's been a pleasure working with you. And thank you for all the work you've done on behalf of our veterans. I just wanted to start out with the last comment that was made by Mr. Murray. You just mentioned that there was a seamless transition for veterans from DoD to the VA, but I would argue that that's not entirely the case. There is no automatic enrollment for veterans when they transition from active duty to the VA. And under the current situation and with a lot of the things we've examined, especially things related to the critical crisis that we have in veteran suicide, for example, there's so many veterans out there who are not under the care of the VA. They're not even under the visibility of the VA as potentially needing or seeking care. So why would you describe this as a seamless transition if there is action required on the part of the veteran? Why would we not have this be an opt-out rather than an opt-in type scenario for veterans as they transition?
Ma'am, I would like to clarify what I was trying to describe was the VFW's BDD program at 26 military installations around the country, where we have veteran service officers who help those transitioning servicemen and women file their claim 90 days before leaving service, so that when they get out, they have that seamless transition. We want that at every base around the country. So I agree with you. It is not a seamless transition throughout, and that's not what I was trying to convey. What I was saying, that a program like that does set up those servicemen and women for success before they take off the uniform would help a seamless transition for healthcare all around at every base around the country.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you for clarifying that. And, I do agree that more programs like the ones you're describing, or an overall process that would ensure that when veterans do leave the service, they stay connected with the VA would be very beneficial. I wanted to go back to some data that I had seen in the testimony provided from CRS from Mr. Panangala. I apologize if I also have incorrectly pronounced your name. But the information says that 78% of veterans who've applied for service connection due to toxic exposures were denied since 2007. 78% of those veterans have been denied. And as I've listened through this hearing and the testimony from the different VSOs present here, what comes across, and if I were a veteran who had toxic exposure, say in Iraq or Afghanistan and somewhere in Southwest Asia, the message that would be coming across to me watching this would be that the VA is doing just fine denying 78% of you. So I don't quite understand why everyone here is so content with the status quo, because I really do think that the VA is letting down our veterans, and especially in these areas of toxic exposure. So I'd like to start out with Mr. Steele from the Legion, and then Mr. Bearfield. If you could just comment on the fact of how can you be satisfied with the status quo when we put this burden on the veterans to justify their exposure, and we're not getting them care when we know there are so many out there who critically need this care from the VA.
So was that question for me from CRS?
To Mr. Steele and Mr. Barfield. It looks like maybe Mr. Steele is unmuting, so you could respond.
Oh, unmuting.
So, Mr. Steele, would you like
you're absolutely right.
love to hear your response?
Can you hear me?
Okay, I believe we're still having some trouble hearing from Mr. Steele. So, Mr. Barfield, would love to hear your response on my question about how do we say that the VA is adequately serving veterans when 78% of those who had toxic exposure since 2007 have been denied.
Right, and thank you for the question, ma'am. With the numbers that are quoted, it's unfortunate that this has become an issue of entitlement to service connection, and that's what the hang-up is the people who have, or the veterans who have applied for benefits that have been denied. Because of that denial, they cannot receive the health care that they need. So this is the portion that our organization feels needs to be changed. They're applying for benefits or compensation benefits for the disabilities that they're claiming, but because they're not granted or found eligible, not found eligible, but not granted service connection for the disabilities that they're claiming as a result of their exposure, this is the hurdle that's keeping them from getting the health care. We feel that there should be a way to go around that hurdle. We understand that it's going to be difficult and it may take many more years of science to establish those presumptives, but the healthcare need is right now. So there should be a way for those veterans that have been exposed to burn pits and toxic exposure to be able to receive the healthcare that they need to address the disabilities that they're claiming. You're muted, ma'am. I can't hear you.
Thank you. Well, I agree with you completely that they should have access to that healthcare. And I think that, what we're discussing at this hearing is how we break down those barriers and how we take that burden off the veteran to fight for that healthcare and to make it available to them. And I believe that the bill we're discussing today that's presented by Mr. Rowe is looking for new and innovative and different ways to study and address those issues. But I'm very surprised that we're hearing so much resistance from the very VSOs who, day in and day out work to help the veterans. So it seems as though my time has expired, but wanted to thank you again for your participation.